He's coming towards you with more speed.
Mine is the best example.
Yeah, yeah, and he's coming in so many ways, you know.
Actually, I have a really funny Lord Shiva story that I'd like to share with you. Then we'll read a little from Bhagavad Gita. But there's one devotee, now he's the president of our temple in Dallas, Texas. And he's from Fiji. And he and all his brothers are big attorneys, leaders in Fiji. So what happened was, at one time, a number of years ago, the devotees bought a property and moved in right next door to him. And they were all really devoted to Lord Shiva, like big devotees of Lord Shiva. And they were so, who are these Hare Kṛṣṇas? They moved in next door, they're making so much noise. And they really wanted to get them out of there. And they were trying everything to get them out. And they were, going to take them to court and do all these things. And so this one very leading devotee at that time, Krishna Goswami, challenged him. And he said, you chant this. He said, I'm going to challenge you. You chant this Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra. I think it was for 3 months or something. I think he told him, you chant this Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra for 3 months. You eat vegetarian food and chant this mantra for 3 months. And after you do that, if you still want us to get out, I promise you we'll get out, we'll leave. And so they, he made a deal. And so then this man, he did that. And after doing that for that amount of time, then his heart was changed. And at a certain point, I'm not sure exactly when, I think it was right like toward the end, but I'm not sure exactly what point, because they were all devotees of Shiva. And so at one point, Lord Shiva appeared in his dream. No, here's what it was. He was reading, you know this story? He was reading a Shiva Purana. And it said in that Purana that sometimes your guru comes to you in the form of an enemy. And he was really struck. How is it that your own guru could come in the form of an enemy? And then, he had this whole, challenge from this person. They were trying to get them out. And then, he chanted for 3 months, chanted japa for 3 months like that. And then he realized that this was his guru. It's a really amazing story. And now he's,
So he became his disciple, and now he's a leading devotee in Texas.
He's a leading devotee in Texas, and this guru of his, Krishna Goswami, put him in charge of the temple in Dallas, Texas. But they were so against him.
And they didn't give up the temple. They kept the temple.
That's a really good story. So we wanted to read a little bit from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 29. Say a few prayers first. Would you like this garland? Here, send her over here. Here, this is for you. This is for you to make you happy. What's your name? Okay. What's your name? What's your name? I'm gonna guess your name. Krishna Mataji. Krishna. Krishna. Here, I'm giving it. I'm not giving it to you. I'm giving it to your mommy. It's not for you. It's only for your mommy. We all have free will, right? Okay, let me chant a couple of prayers.
You can put it on and then she'll want to.
Put it on you.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Yes, really, it's a great blessing. Thank you so much.
Jai Śrī Krishna Caitanya
Prabhu Nityaṁ. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So this is Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, 29th verse. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dvesya na priyaha Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mayi te teshu chapyaham. Should you have copies? Would anyone else like to try chanting? I don't have so many Bhagavad Gita. You want to try? Mom, you want to say? Let's say it together. Anyone? No, yeah.
Samaham sarva bhuteshu name dveshasya na priyaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maiteshu chapyaham.
Okay, so I'm going to skip the word for word translation and just say the translation. Krishna speaking to Arjuna. I envy no one, he says, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Purport. One may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone and no one is his special friend, then why does he take a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? But this is not discrimination. It is natural. Any man in this material world may be very charitably disposed, yet he has a special interest in his own children. The Lord claims that every living entity in whatever form is his son, and so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. He is just like a cloud which pours rain all over. Rain, there you are. He pours rain all over in the form of mridanga playing, regardless of whether it falls on rock or land or water. But for his devotees, he gives specific attention. Such devotees are mentioned here. They are always in Krishna consciousness, and therefore they are always transcendentally situated in Krishna. The very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in Krishna consciousness are living transcendentalists situated in him. The Lord says here distinctly, Maite, they are in me. Naturally, as a result, the Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. This also explains the words, Ye yata mam kapadyante tam sthitaiva bhajamyaham. Whoever surrenders unto me, proportionately I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotee are conscious. When a diamond is set in a golden ring, it looks very nice. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter, and when a living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is a diamond, and so this combination is very nice. He was saying before that you're a jewel, right? So this is about the jewel, right? Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there is no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there is no reciprocation between the Supreme and the living entity. But in the personalist philosophy, there is. The example is given that the Lord is like a desire tree, and whatever one wants from this desire tree, the Lord supplies. But here, the explanation is more complete. The Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotees. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of the material world. It is part of the spiritual world, where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. So this is a very beautiful verse and purport about the reciprocation between the Lord and his devotees. So first of all, he says he doesn't envy anyone. He's not partial to anyone. He's equal to everyone. But then he says, whoever renders service to him in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. And then he gives the example in the purport, just like you can't criticize the mother for being partial to her, or father for being partial to their own children, right? It's just natural. So Prabhupada's making the point that the devotees who engage in service, affectionate service to the Lord and reciprocation, are like the Lord's own children. And so it's natural. You can't criticize someone for being partial to their own children, although they may have a vision that, all people are God's children. Still, one is my own personal child. So it's very, very beautiful. And, the example that's given that when we render service, when we become inclined to the service of the Lord, such a devotee glitters like gold. Isn't that beautiful that we start to serve Krishna, then our hearts start to glitter like gold, and that Krishna is the diamond. So Shubha Vilas Prabhu called you a jewel. So that's beautiful because he's a jewel-like devotee. So he sees that you're also a jewel-like devotee. And so all these devotees are glittering together, in such a beautiful way. So really, Krishna's the jewel and the devotees are like gold. Like, you have a gold ring and it's missing the stone. It looks kind of empty, like, uh-oh, what happened? But then you have a beautiful diamond that's set in gold. So many, when you have the flowers and the leaves, then it makes a beautiful combination. So the devotees in reciprocation of service with the Lord creates a beautiful, loving combination. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada explains that it's not about karma. It's not about like a business arrangement. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, or some kind of business exchange. It's about unalloyed love. Just let me do this without looking for any payback. And that's such a beautiful thing that we don't see in the material world. If we're working at a job and the boss says, well, I want you to come in tomorrow, but I'm not going to pay you anymore. And, you start looking for another job. But in Krishna consciousness, this is the mood of reciprocal love coming from Srimati Radharani, coming from Lord Chaitanya. That even if you don't reciprocate, I'm still going to love you, I'm still going to serve you. And this is the mood of the great devotees. Even sometimes Krishna may not be appearing to them, may not be reciprocating with them, but they're still loving him so affectionately. And sometimes he comes in disguised forms or in tricky forms. Like there's one beautiful astakam that's called the Chor Astakam. You heard of that? They don't know, Hare Krishna, welcome. They don't know exactly who really wrote it, but it's kind of attributed to Bilbamangala Thakur because it's his style. But it's a very cheeky kind of an astakam where he's worshiping Krishna, but he's calling him the supreme thief. And he's saying that, you're a thief, and I'm going to just put you in the prison of my heart, and you're never going to escape. I'm going to put you in the dark dungeon of my dark heart, and you're never going to escape. Even if you try to escape, I'm never going to let you escape. So Krishna is worshipped for whether he reciprocates or not by the devotees. There's maybe you all know the story of Sudama Brahmana, such a famous story. He's such a poor man and he went to school with Krishna. He's like completely impoverished. He has so many holes in his clothes that he doesn't really even have clothes anymore. They're just mostly holes. And his wife is feeling quite badly that he's so impoverished and so skinny. She's worried about his health, actually. And so she begs him, she says, your old school friend is the king of Dwarka. Why don't you go and ask him for some help? You're basically starving. Why don't you just go and see, if he can help you out? And he's a little bit inspired. Do you know this story? Have you ever heard the story of Sudama Brahmana? No? It's a nice one. So probably most people from India kind of know this story. So on the prompting of his wife, he really was looking forward to just seeing his old friend Krishna, but he didn't really want to ask him for anything. But so he, they're discussing, the husband and wife, and so they said, well, if you're going to go see Krishna, you're going to walk all the way, but you can't go empty-handed. You have to bring something, right? So he goes around and begs from the neighbors, and all he can beg is some broken rice. In India, they call it chipped rice. It's like the worst rice. It's totally broken. And if you try cooking it, it's quite bad. And so he begged some of that, and he had a little pouch full of this chipped rice that he brought to give to Krishna. So then he walks all the way to Dwarka. He's so impoverished and he has nothing. And then when he gets to the gate, because the culture was a culture of respect for holy people, So the gatekeeper let him in, and then Krishna sees him, and he says, it's his old school friend, and Krishna puts him up on his own. Krishna's the king of Dwarka, right? So Krishna puts him up on his own throne, and he gets down and he's massaging his feet, and then Krishna's wife Rukmini is fanning him with the peacock fan, and they're just worshiping him, and he's so embarrassed, and he's totally embarrassed to give Krishna this broken rice that he brought with him. He doesn't want to give it because it's such a terrible, inappropriate gift for the king, right? And so Krishna's reading his heart, and Krishna's saying, "Well, did you bring me anything? Did you bring anything for me?" Oh no! And then Krishna just starts eating this rice, grabs it from him and starts eating this rice that Sudama brought for him. And he eats one palmful, and then he eats, there's songs about this, right? He eats another one, and then Rukmini says, no, don't eat any more, because you're so indebted to him. Just because you're reciprocating with him, you're eating this rice that he brought you, and you've eaten one palmful. Now, if you eat another one, you're going to be so indebted to him. What will happen? So, anyway, so he didn't want to ask Krishna for anything, but Krishna kind of could see that he brought this rice, and out of loving reciprocation, Krishna was eating this rice. And so then he was just so satisfied, he was just so happy seeing Krishna, and he definitely didn't want to ask Krishna for anything. And they were talking about their old days when they went to collect firewood, for their guru, and there's a big rainstorm, and they're reminiscing and all this. So then he was, Krishna, they gave him a nice big soft fluffy white bed, and he was sleeping, and then they fed him, and gave him this big soft bed, and then the next day he was going back home, and he didn't ask Krishna for anything. He didn't want to, So then what happens is, when he gets home, he gets to what he thinks is his home, but he couldn't recognize anything, because what happened was his little rundown shack had turned into this gigantic palace. So just by the reciprocation of Krishna, bringing Krishna this little bit of broken up rice, Krishna turned his home into a palace, and his wife was there to meet him, and instead of her raggedy piece of a sari, she had she looked like a goddess of fortune with all this beautiful jewelry, and everything was totally transformed. And so, yeah, Krishna's reciprocation is so amazing for someone who's selfless like that. It said that he was a little bit attached to renunciation. So sometimes we're not so attached to renunciations. Krishna reciprocates with us in different ways. Maybe Krishna doesn't give us a big palace, and maybe he does. But he's free to do it. And that's the last prayer of the Sikh Shastakam of Lord Chaitanya. You are completely free to do anything and everything. Still, you are my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So this is Lord Chaitanya speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani. You can trample me under your feet. You can make me brokenhearted by not being present before me. But still, you're my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So, yeah.
Ma'am, if you look into the story of Sudama or anything, if we respond to Krishna reciprocates with a lot of love and affection. But in this sentence, the sentence somehow I'm trying to understand more here. whoever surrenders unto me, proportionately I take care of him. What is the meaning of proportionately? Why he uses the word proportionately? Because there is no kind of relationship, right? If you give something, I proportionately respond, because Krishna gives a lot to us.
Yeah.
So why the word proportionately here?
You know, there's another verse in the Gita that talks about how Krishna says, everyone follows my path. So everyone follows his path. And the more we reach out to him, the more he reciprocates. The more we reach out to him lovingly, the more we, like there was a verse we read this morning about staying connected to the current, like almost like a powerhouse, like we keep, there's the plug. I keep unplugging, and so then I don't get that current coming through me. But the more we surrender unto him, the more he reciprocates accordingly. The more we desire him, just like Prabhu said, or you said, that the more, we do a little bit and then he just seems to run to us. So because he's traveling in our hearts as the super soul in every living being. I mean, imagine the patience of the Lord that, I'm in the body of a pig, or in the body of an insect, or in the body of a demigod, or in a hellish planet. And so he's traveling with me in my heart, just waiting for me so patiently. I mean, most friends wouldn't wait that long. You have a girlfriend, somebody has a husband, wait for 1,000 births, 1,000,000 trillion unlimited births. Goodbye, Charlie. But Krishna is just with us through so many births, waiting for us to turn. We keep turning away. And Anadi Bahir Mukh Jeev Vanchakare, verse Prabhupada used to quote that, for so long we've turned our face away. We've turned our backs on the person who loves us the most. But now the whole point of these messengers of the great saints were all the messengers of God, like angels. You've seen the ancient paintings, the angels, they're transparent. They kind of float and they don't touch the ground. They don't get mucked up by the modes of nature. They're messengers of God. So the saints who bring all the great teachers are the acharyas. They're saints who are messengers of God. They keep coming. And so many religions, Jesus Christ or Muhammad or, even Buddha saying ahimsa, stop killing the animals, everybody. So they come with different messages for different times. But these are the angels who come to spark our reciprocation. Because Krishna, he's actually missing us, even though he has, if you look at these pictures, he's got so many devotees surrounding him, loving him, so many cowherd boyfriends, they're wrestling with him, jumping on his back, and the gopis, he loves it when they chastise him, or his mother is, telling him, if you don't stop stealing, you're going to grow up to be a thief, what will I do? And she's so stressed out, right? So many beautiful relationships, still he's missing that relationship with us, because each one of us has a unique sacred relationship. It's such a beautiful idea. So Yeitamam prapadyante comes to as we surrender unto him, he rewards us accordingly. And those moods of surrender travel with us from life to life, from life to life, like an eternal bank account. In this material world, you have a bank account. You leave this world, and the bank account is gone. It goes to someone. But spiritual life is like an eternal bank account. When someone like you guys, you hear some kirtan. This is the best. This is better than the other music I've been listening to. So why? It's because you have some natural attraction from previously. You're picking up from where you left off in a previous life. That natural attraction. So Krishna's reminding us, come back to me, I'm missing you. He wants to exchange these loving rasas with these living entities so that we can glitter and shine in relationship with him, like this said. Like a diamond and gold are so much more beautiful when they're together. was also thinking of this other story of Lord Chaitanya that's similar to Sudama Brahmana. There was a very poor man in Navadvip when Lord Chaitanya appeared there, and he was a banana seller. This is one of Ratna Swami's favorite stories. He made sure this painting is in the Chowpatty temple because, you know, it's such a favorite story. But this very poor man, he was a banana seller. He sold bananas, he sold banana leaves, he sold cups made out of bananas. He was basically penniless. And can you imagine how much someone would make selling those things in Navadvip? But so then whatever money he made from this kind of work, he would spend half of his money that he made on worshiping the Ganges. So I don't know what that means exactly. Maybe he bought some incense or something like that. But so he would spend half his money on the worship of the Ganges. And then Lord Chaitanya, before he was Lord Chaitanya, when he was Nimai Pandit in his youth, he was posing before he revealed himself as the divine, Gauranga avatar. He was posing as this arrogant scholar walking around Navadvip, just challenging everyone. And so he would come and actually try to cheat this banana seller. He would say, hey, Kolavecha means banana seller. His name was Sridhar, but nobody even knew his name. He was just like the banana man, right? Hey, Kolavecha! So Lord Nimai Pandit used to come and say, your prices are too high. I'm not going to buy these banana cups from you. And so Kolavecha, we just like respond and say, my prices are very fair. If you don't like my prices, then go buy these bananas from somebody else because my prices are very honest and very fair. He goes, no. When Lord Nimai Pandit goes, no. When I find a good seller, I don't change. I'm not going to change. I like to get my banana cups and banana leaves and bananas from you, and I'm not going to change, but your prices are unfair. You're trying to cheat. Actually, then he said, no, actually, I know that you have a secret treasure that you're keeping that nobody knows. He said, what treasure do I have? I don't have anything. I'm living in this leaky hut. The water's coming in. The only possession I have is this iron pot that even a thief wouldn't steal. It's leaking. The roof is leaking. Everything's leaking. I don't have anything. And how can you say I have a great hidden treasure? What are you talking about? So they would have this exchange every day. And, this Kolavecha would look forward to this arrogant Nimai Pandit to come and haggle with him. And Nimai would, only eat off those banana plates. And then at a certain point, when he revealed his divinity, there was an incident called the Mahaprakash Lila, when Lord Chaitanya actually revealed his divinity to all his devotees. And each one of them came forward and he said, ask whatever you want, how can it fulfill your desires? And each one was coming up. And then Lord Chaitanya said, bring Sridhar, and all these great devotees that were surrounding him were like, he's Sridhar. Nobody even knew who he was, and they didn't even know where to find him. Bring Sridhar. And so he said, go to the marketplace. It was the dead of night, right? Lord Chaitanya is revealing his divinity in the middle of the night in the house of Srivas Thakur. And he said, go to the marketplace and you'll hear him calling Krishna's name. Just go to the marketplace and you'll find him. So they go in the marketplace, where's Sridhar, and they hear this, ecstatic chanting, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna. This must be Sridhar. Then they drag him up to Srivasa's house and they bring him, this poor beggarly type of a person, put him in front of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya revealed that, he's been worshiping Krishna his whole life and he had no idea that this is his worshipful Lord. And then Lord Chaitanya saying to him, ask anything you like, whatever benediction. I'll give you palaces, I'll give you gold, I'll give you Vaikuntha, whatever you want. Just ask whatever you want. He says, no, I don't want anything. I don't want to be a merchant. I just want to serve you. I just want to love you. I'm not doing my devotion to get some, pound, shilling, pence exchange with you. I just want to serve you. And Lord Chaitanya keeps insisting, no, ask something from me. And so then Sridhar says, all right, he says, I request that arrogant young Nimai Pandit will come and try to steal my bananas every day and that I will always have the darshan of this Nimai Pandit coming to steal my bananas forever. So, such a nice, yeah. So the point is that we don't want to do devotional service like a merchant. You know, Prahlad Maharaj also, when Lord Nrsingadev tried to benedict him, you know, please take anything, take this kingdom, take anything. And Prahlad says, I'm not a merchant. I'm not doing this just to, you know, have an exchange, tit for tat. No, I just want to serve you. And these are the devotees who capture the Lord's heart. You know, please let me serve you. Let me love you. And those are the ones who Krishna accepts as his very own, you know, very own dearmost, the devotees who want to serve him without something in exchange. So that's the goal. You know? But sometimes we just have to approach Krishna anyway. Maybe we do want something in exchange, so we don't run away and think, well, I can't approach Krishna, I have to hide out. No, you know, whatever you, but there's one verse in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, akama, whether you have no desires, akama, sarvakama, whether you have all desires, mokshakama, if you want moksha, if you want liberation, just worship Krishna. Whatever your desire is, just worship Krishna. He will receive it accordingly. So these are a few thoughts on this verse.
I'll just make a couple comments and maybe we can have some conversations, some questions. And you brought up some so one thing that struck me, you might have highlighted the same section in the purport where Prabhu writes, this is so powerful. He says, living entities in a pure state are called devotees. Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. Such a beautiful expression. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there is no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there's no reciprocation between the Supreme and the living entity, but in the personalist philosophy, there is. So this is a really kind of essential aspect of the Bhakti tradition of Krishna consciousness. The understanding that actually, in the Bhagavatam, it explains our Bhagavatam scholars off right now. He's doing something else the 10-year-olds do. But it explains that the absolute, according to the Bhagavatam, according to Vaishnava philosophy, is realized in three phases. You know, one is the impersonal Brahman. So there is an impersonal. We acknowledge that. That is a legitimate aspect of the supreme energy, is an impersonalist manifestation. Krishna describes that in several places in the Bhagavad Gita. And then also that there is Paramatma, it's the second realization that there's God in the heart. You know, different religious systems talk about God in the heart. And then also describes there as a Bhagavan, the supreme personality. So in our Vaishnava philosophy, we understand that one can understand and approach the Supreme in any one of these three energies, you could say, or manifestations. So some schools of philosophy focus on the Brahman or the Brahmajyoti or the impersonal aspect of the Supreme. Some, generally the yogis, they meditate or they worship Paramatma, God in the heart. And in Bhakti Yoga, we understand, yes, that there's also the Bhagavan or the Supreme Personality of God and where these other things come from. Because within the personal aspect, you can have impersonalism and you can have a localized form. So this described as to be the highest realization. Prabhu sometimes will give a simple example. He said, just like if you're standing on the train track at night and you see a train coming, at first, when you see it from a distance, all you see is the light. You haven't really approached it. When the train gets closer, then you see there's form. And then when the train stops, then the doors open and all the people come out. You realize there's personality. So in the initial, so you gave the example, like seeing the light is like the Brahman Jyoti, it's a preliminary realization. But then when you get closer, when there's more involved, then Paramatma is there, that there's form. And then that there's personality. So here it's giving some additional insight. It's not just that there's personality. And this is something that the Vaishnava tradition, especially as Rukmini is describing Lord Chaitanya, who we understand as Krishna himself, who came particularly in this age because this is the age of Kali Yuga, age of quarrel and hypocrisy, very difficult time for spiritual practice. You know, there's so much pressure out there, so much, you know, political crisis and national crisis and financial problems. And, you know, at work, it's stressful just to go to work, and, you know, the kids and like this and that, so many things. So it's a very difficult age. And Krishna is so kind. As the conditions get worse, he makes the process more simple. So that's Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, who appeared in this age just 500 years ago, particularly to teach the chanting of Krishna's name, of God's names. That's the Yuga Dharma, or the particular methodology of spiritual practice in this age that's the most effective. So we understand there's a personal aspect, but not just that there's a personal aspect. And so God is all powerful, like in the Gita, in the 11th chapter, Arjuna, once he's convinced that Krishna actually is the supreme, he says, I like to see how you enter into this material world. Show me your universal form. And then we know he reveals this inconceivable aspects of power. And, you know, Arjuna is described very graphically. Arjuna sees all the warriors in the battlefield. You know, this is just before the battle. He sees that they're being crushed between the teeth of the universal form, and he's got heads and eyes and bellies everywhere. And Arjuna sees himself and the universe and all the devas, everything. And then Arjuna, after a certain period of time, he just says, okay, enough of this. This is a little scary. Can you please go back and show me your original form? And first he asks, please show me your form, Vishnu form, which he does. And then he says, please, I want to see your form as Krishna. And when he shows his form as Krishna, then Arjuna says, okay, now I'm peaceful. And Prabhu sometimes will give the example, just like if a child is crying, right? Some of these little, your daughter, or maybe a little younger, they're crying. And maybe, you know, all the ladies come forward, try to hold the child, still cries. Another lady still cries. Another lady still cries. When the child finally gets back with his mother, then they're okay. Now they're quiet down. This is mom, like I'm home, right? So Prabhupada would, in our Back to Godhead magazine, he has this expression, back to home, back to Godhead, that every living entity, we're like in an uncomfortable situation because we want to be in our natural environment, but we're not. We're in an artificial environment. So many wonderful and simple examples are given. Just like here, there's so much water in Florida, a lot of fish here, other things too that hunt the fish and people sometimes, we won't talk about those. But there's so many, if you take the fish out of the water, which is its natural environment, the fish, you can give it fish food, you can give it a fish girlfriend or boyfriend, you can give it an umbrella, keep the sun off, you can spray it with, you know, water or aloe vera juice, whatever, give it a smoothie. It'll never be happy until it's back in the water. So the same way as spiritual beings, we're in a material situation that just never feels right. Now, sometimes like you get out of school and you think, okay, you know, as soon as I graduate from university, then everything will be fine. And then you graduate, you realize, okay, now I need a job. So you go, okay, so I'm going to go try for this job, this job, this job. Think, well, if I can only get a job in that company, everything will be okay. And maybe you're very fortunate, you get a job with that company. And then you think, this boss is not very nice. If only I had a different boss. If I could transfer to that department, then everything would be okay. So, you know, you put a lot of energy. It might take a year or two to get transferred to that department. Then you get in that department, you realize, you know, that last department, it wasn't perfect, but I did have an office with a window on the corner of the building. And now I'm stuck in the middle, right? Like that. Where now I have more responsibility. Now they gave me a promotion, but now I have so much more pressure. I used to be able to go home on, you know, Friday night, 5 o'clock finished. But then I was thinking, oh, I need more money. I need a promotion. You get a promotion. Now they expect you to be there. Hey, Saturday, the work needs to be done. Right? You're on call.
That's so cool.
That's it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, go ahead. Explain that.
Oh, just there's this one Franciscan teacher. He talks about how every one of us has a God-sized hole in our hearts. And we just keep trying to fill it up with this and that and the other thing. But it's a God-sized hole. And we're not, you know, because we're like that fish. You know, we're just trying to fill up that hole with so many things, but we can't
So we're missing that relationship with God, but we're trying to
Our nature is,
fill it with so many things.
we're meant for a higher nature. We're meant for a higher life.
And what's so fascinating here and in our Vaishnava understanding, Prabhupada highlights in here, the Supreme Lord becomes a devotee of his devotees. So it's not just that in our understanding, particularly as Krishna is revealed by Lord Chaitanya, it's not just that we reawaken this relationship with God and like Arjuna with the universal form. Oh, you're so powerful, please don't, don't kill me, please, I'm scared. He said, I'm scared. But then Krishna reveals himself as Krishna. And we know the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, who is revealing that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's the original absolute truth, original personality of Godhead, he actually becomes the chariot driver of Arjuna. It's kind of like, let's say you work for a very big company. Anybody, any corporate people here work for some big companies? So they're like a CEO?
Not you.
CEO, yeah. So let's imagine one day you're coming to work and you get a message. The CEO is really impressed with how hard you are working and how dedicated you are to the company. So the next week, he's going to come and stay in your garage and he's going to drive you back and forth to work every day. Because he just wants to reciprocate because you're such a dedicated employee. You think, what? He's the CEO. I'm like down here, He's like level 19. I'm at 2, right? I'm, level 2 in the hierarchy. So you'd be that's amazing. How is it possible? But so this is the what's taught us here. It's beyond surrendering to God. That's the preliminary stage. Because it's in becoming God's devotee, but God is so amazing. Krishna is so amazing. He becomes the devotee of his devotee. It's just, so amazing as we build with Arjuna. And we know, before the battle, we're listening to this audio book of the Mahabharata as translated by Krishna Dharma, who's a member of ISKCON based in the UK now in Mayapur. And it's just so amazing, our Yudhishthira is still hoping for peace. Duryodhana's doing his nonsense and they get back from their 14 years of exile. They're still hoping for peace and they can't figure out how to get through to Duryodhana. And Krishna says, well, I'll talk to him. I'll go. So he just goes as the emissary. And we know Duryodhana was such a rascal, he tried to kidnap Krishna. So Krishna's like, yeah, he's being the devotee of his devotee. So this is such a wonderful revelation of the nature of Krishna, as you described with the story with Kulavich or Sridhar. Another Leela just entered my mind that I'd forgotten where Krishna manifests again. It's just his willingness to become the devotee of his devotee and how he himself, the nature of God, like people, okay, so a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe in God. Some people will say, well, I believe in God, but that God doesn't have any personality. And other people will say, I believe in God, and he's got a person, and he's really powerful, and he sits up there. Like I remember before I became a member of ISKCON, I was traveling, and I found like a tract, they call it like a little religious publication, like just laying on the ground. I picked it up. It's from a Christian organization. It was like trying to get people to think about God. And I had a picture of God. And he was sitting on a chair with no face and a big chair. And these little tiny people walking by. And he was going, heaven, hell, heaven, hell. That was their concept of God. It's rather limited. And in the Vaishnava tradition, we understand, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And he has everything we find here is there in its pure state. So just like you have families. So God has families. Why not? How can we have something that God doesn't have? We have relationships with our friends. We have relationships with, a lot of America. Everybody has a pet dog. The spiritual, they have dogs too, but cows, they're such loving creatures. So God has relationships with every single one of us. And so much so that again, he becomes the devotee of his devotee as demonstrated with Arjuna. We were just hearing the pastime with grandfather Bhishma when he passed away. And Bhishma was in this military rasa, chivalrous rasa. It was the grandsire of the Kuru dynasty. And Krishna had pledged, as you recall, many of you remember, that he wouldn't fight in the battle. Right? Remember these beautiful stories. He wouldn't fight in the battle, but Bhishma made a pledge, either I will kill Arjuna, which he knew he couldn't, or I'm going to make Krishna fight today. So he was fighting so hard. So Krishna knew that was his desire. So at a certain point in time, grandfather Bhishma was like overwhelming Arjuna. And Arjuna wasn't fighting because it was my grandfather. I don't really want to fight. So Krishna said, you're not going to fight him, I will. And he jumped off the chariot, he picked up a wheel, broken wheel, and he ran. He ran at Bhishma.
Dropped his clothes.
And Arjuna was really upset. He said, Krishna, don't do this. You promised you weren't going to fight. You can't break your promise. So you can just imagine, Bhishma saw Krishna coming, and he's a pure devotee of the Lord, and he just was so ecstatic to see this move. Krishna displaying this aspect of his personality. So he was just letting it, okay, come. You're God, you want to finish this body? Wow, what a way to go, right? So he's just standing just in complete ecstasy and seeing Krishna come. And Arjuna is completely distraught. Don't break your promise. So Arjuna is running after Krishna by his, Krishna's range, and he catches him and he says, Lord, we can't do this, can't do this. You promised you won it. So in this way, Krishna reciprocates so wonderfully with his devotees. And there's so many wonderful examples given in the Shastra. You were mentioning about the Bhagavatam, was reading the 9th. It's just story after story after story. We should say history after history after history of how Krishna reciprocates with his different devotees. And the whole purpose of that, the main purpose, maybe the whole purpose, is to convince us how wonderful it is. So at a certain point in time, we're just going to say, this material world, it's not such a great place. And you can't stay here anyway. You can only stay for a certain period of time. Why don't I go to that place where I can have such loving relationships for all time, free from all the problems, the inevitability, birth, death, old age, disease, all the problems that are here. Why not go to a place like that and be happy eternally? So Krishna comes, and as it's been explained here, he's given us an opportunity to approach him, and he's very kind to his devotees. He reciprocates. Like you ask, well, isn't it kind of like, what does this mean, reciprocation? So Prabhupada explains, he says, the proportion is every one step you take towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards us. So imagine if you went into the office, again, back to the office, and you go, and the boss says, so did you get all your work done yesterday? He says, I got 10% done. He says, that's fine, very good. Time for a raise. Right? Did that ever happen? No, but Krishna's like, he's looking for an excuse, really. He's really looking for an excuse like that. And there's so many, histories like that of people that just whimsically chanted. They weren't very sincere, but Krishna, okay, he's chanting my name. Let me try that. Let me, I accept that. He's chanting my name. Let me go and try to help this person, help them realize themselves spiritually. So maybe we see there's some questions or comments. Anybody have some questions on this or anything else? One clarification, we lived in Washington, D.C., not Washington. So we don't get that much credit. We didn't come so far. We came quite a ways, but we didn't come all the way from Washington State. We tell people we're from Washington, it depends where you are. If you're in Colorado, you say from Washington, they'll go, oh, Seattle. Right? Oh, no. Maryland. Oh, that one. That Washington. So we're from there, that one. Any comments or questions? We introduced everybody when we first came. You came a little late, so maybe you can tell us.
Nearby.
Live nearby here in Temple.
I'm in ISKCON for the last 1 year.
1 year. Very nice. Very good. Thank you. And thanks for coming tonight. Why do you come to the ISKCON community?
So initially, the association Sanya association. I mean, I was a friend. So initially, it was like a simple visit, but I liked the association and the way how things happen.
Yes.
So I'm not too deep, but at least 50% of the association, very close association. Probably I'll try to improve it more.
Please. I wish I was 50% committed. I'm still about 20%, but I'm working on it. So yeah, that's nice. Actually, that's the way we all become Krishna conscious. We get a little association and we get a little sense that, there's something nice to this. And then we go deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper. And then Krishna gradually kind of shows us that actually, if we add Krishna, like Rukmini mentioned, renunciation, the bhakti process is not about renunciation, it's about adding Krishna. So, you know, in the Gita, probably one of his purpose, he says, if one works in a factory, but if he's thinking, I'm doing this work for Krishna, Prabhu says that's pure bhakti. And he said many, many times, he said, you don't have to give up your situation. Whatever you're doing, you just add Krishna. Because, you know, we need doctors, we need lawyers, we need, you know, maybe if it was more Krishna conscious, we would need less lawyers, but we still would need some lawyers, you know. And, you know, we need taxi drivers and we need IT professionals and we need mothers and we need fathers and we need people to build houses and people to mow the lawns and plant. We need all of that. And if our consciousness changes so that we're not thinking that work is a burden, or we're not thinking how to cut corners. Isn't it like we know, like the nature of material business is always you minimize your output and you maximize your profit, which means ultimately everybody's kind of cheating each other, you know. Like these houses, we had a townhouse in Maryland, probably built around the same time. And after a few years, our roof, every time the wind blew, the roof blew off part of it. You know, we don't have hurricanes like here. We just get a normal wind. And we, you know, kept getting the roof finished. And I learned this term, builder quality. Have you learned that term, builder quality?
Yes.
In America, they build a house that looks good, lasts long enough for the warranty to end. You know, so like they could spend an extra 10% and put a better quality roof on, but they're trying to cut the cost and maximize the output. So they make the roof look very nice, the tile, but it's cheap quality. So after a few years, you have to replace the roof. And everyone will tell you, don't replace with the same quality that was there, right? Like you look at most houses, like the hot water heater, like they have the nice yellow government mandated, and it shows you, you know, here's like the best quality, and every time, here's yours, right? It looks very nice and shiny, but it's always way down there in the scale, right? And if you go to the store to replace your hot water heater when it quits, and half the time you thought it would last, they'll always tell you, you need to buy something up here. Don't get builder quality. So if our consciousness changes, then we see, okay, I'm painting this house, but I'm a devotee. These people are devotees. I'm dedicating my work to Krishna. Let me do it nice for you. You know, it's not like I'm painting this to get a paycheck and go home and I'll never see this person again. Because this person is a devotee. Everyone's a part and parcel of Krishna. Everyone's a spiritual being. Part of my service is to serve others. So if I'm a painter, let me do a really nice job painting. If I'm a builder, then I tell them, let me make this a little better quality for you. Or, you know, for 5% more cost, the house will last 50 years more. Please, I make that advice. Now, some people are pious, they'll do that already, but generally, that's not the culture. Generally. So part of Krishna's conscious spiritualities, when our consciousness can change like that, then everything will become practically, in a practical way, so much better. So it's not just in the clouds. It's very practical. So some comments or questions? Have you read anything in the 9th canto you have any questions on?
Yati, you have a question for Yati?
That's good, because I haven't read the 9th canto in a while, so I'm glad.
We just finished the Yati story.
Oh, wonderful story. Wonderful story. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, here, let's go here first.
Yeah, one question I have. So generally when we know whether we are going in the right direction, suppose I am traveling from Tampa to Alachua, so one of my friend may say that, okay, you have to go straight and go I-275 then go to Alachua. So I know the milestone, whether I am going in the right direction. Intermediate, I know, okay, I am, whatever my friends said, I am in the right, so whatever he said, I can see a similar kind of symbols. So I can understand I am going in the right direction. In spiritual progress, what is that, maybe not to reach, I am not saying maybe 100%, at least to reach 50%, we need to know what is that 5%, what people will realize, what people realize at 10%, so that at least those kind of milestones will help, will help us in understanding that we are going in the right direction or not? Is there any kind of available in, definitely there will be something will be available in Vedas, Shastras. Is there any?
Really beautiful question. Yeah, and I think what you said in the beginning of, you're getting directions from your friend to go to a lecture. So in the same way, I think a really good answer to your beautiful question is that on the spiritual path, you also seek the wisdom of wise friends. You don't just ask anyone. You can ask a homeless guy on the street and he'll tell you, whatever. But even on the path of bhakti, there may be so many different people with so many different types of advice. There may be devotees in a Vyaskan society who like to be gossiping on the internet about this, that, and the other thing. You don't really need to ask directions from them. But when you can perceive, when you feel some reciprocation in your heart with a special friend, like, of course, Krishna is the friend, the ultimate friend in the heart. But when you feel some resonance, like there's one philosopher, Martin Buber, he said that when two people are speaking together and there's that beautiful resonance, that like electric resonance that you sometimes feel with certain people, he said God is present in that exchange. So when you feel that kind of, this whole verse we read tonight was about reciprocation. Right? So when you feel that resonance with some particular devotee, he may be a younger devotee than you, he may be an older devotee, he may be whatever. But when you feel that resonance, that's the type of friend that you can ask, hey, what am I doing wrong? How can I make more advancement? Help me along the path. Because that's a special friend. And this is a very important component of the advancement in bhakti. It's stated in Nectar instruction, the dasi pratiprinati, guyam akiti prichiti. Anyway, to give 6 loving exchanges, right? Bhukte bojayate chaiva sadvidim bhaktiti lakshana. So these are 6 instructions from the great Rupa Goswami. Giving something in charity, give a gift in charity, give a gift, receive a gift. Then reveal your mind in confidence. And here's someone's mind revealed in confidence. Like in the Catholic Church, they have this process of confession. People take it a little bit cheaply. They, maybe perform some sins and then confess and then go out and do it again. But it's actually a sacred thing when it's taken in the right way. So revealing your mind in confidence to some trusted friend. And then sharing prasadam, just like tonight they made some prasadam. So giving prasadam, receiving prasadam. But especially that very sacred reciprocation. So that friend who's going to give you directions on the path. That's not just anyone. It's not just any even Tom, Dick, and Harry devotee. You don't want to, like in the Bible, it says, don't put your pearls before swine. So it's not that devotees are ever swine, but you don't want to reveal your most intimate thing to someone who may say, something that won't help you. But when you meet that trusted friend, and that could be anyone, it could be your own guru or a devotee right here in temple, someone you trust, someone who inspires you. And that's very sacred. And I really think every devotee on the path needs to have 1 or 2 people like that in their lives. And that's sometimes a problem when devotees don't have that. Everyone has to have that kind of trusted friend that I can say, hey, this is where I'm having problems. This is where I'm stuck, help. And then that devotee can say, well, maybe if you weren't sleeping till 10 in the morning every day, or whatever it is, Yeah.
I would also say that, just add to that, I was looking for the verse, I can't remember which one it is right now, but there's a couple of places in Gita where Krishna lists different qualities of a spiritually advanced person. He mentions these qualities come from me. And Prabhupada says this is a test of how we're making progress. Like we're becoming peaceful, are we becoming self-controlled, are we becoming dedicated to spiritual life, are we becoming free from material desires? Gradually, slowly. Prabhupada uses the word gradually probably hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. So it is a gradual process, but also we can measure a little bit. So even like you come and if you it's Saturday today, right? We've been traveling. So even you think, okay, at the end of the day, wow, I took Saturday night, and there was a lot of options I could have done rather than come here and chanted and studied philosophy together. But I made that choice. And you have so many friends that made different choices tonight. They're watching TV, they went to a bar, they're wasting time doing different kind of things. So it's like, check it off, progress. I had the, I made the right decision tonight. That's a good thing. And then other things we can see gradually, we become a little better controlling our anger. we practice it, something where maybe that would have disturbed us previously. Through our spiritual practice in very tangible ways, we see our own abilities gradually improving towards a more spiritual path. So those are some of the things that help as well. And then just to give the opposite perspective, which is sometimes described that like with your practice in spiritual life, it's like when you get on an airplane, you're above the clouds. Like you're going from New York to LA and it's completely cloud covered. You look out the window, just a big white ocean. And after a certain time, you think, okay, I'm going to jump off because I don't think I'm making any progress here. But that's because you're forgetting you're on the plane. There's a pilot, you paid your ticket and you're going to get to the other side if you're patient. And so maybe after a while, then the plane lands, you're like, oh my gosh. We made it to Los Angeles, whereas in the middle, you may not see that progress. And sometimes you even find it where you meet friends or people you haven't known for years who say, boy, you've really changed. And you're thinking, I'm still such a foolish person. I'm not very serious in my spiritual life. I have my mind thinks so many crazy things, but they think, oh, you've really changed. So there's, multiple angles there. Okay. Yes.
Can I add something?
Please.
So Lord Chaitanya, he appeared in this world to teach devotion to him, to himself. And he had some direct disciples, one of which was Rupa Goswami, who he empowered to speak about the process of devotional service. So he wrote down in different books that process in great detail with all kinds of references, how this is really a fact from all different scriptures. So one book he gave us is called Bhakti Rasam Nectar of Devotion. So in that book, Rupa Goswami in the very beginning, first thing he does is define what is devotional service. So he says, Anya Vilasita Sunyam Jnana Karmari Anavritam. And the verse goes on like that it must be pure, unmotivated, uninterrupted, not mixed with other processes. And then he says, what are the results of this? Measurable results? The first result is your suffering, your distress goes down. Why does it go down? Because your sins and the sins generate seeds for more sins. So the first thing that happens, those seeds are burned up, they're finished. So the reactions, which the first form is distress, become minimized more and more and more. And what happened on the other side? You become happy. You find yourself in a more peaceful, happy life. You're not running around trying to find happiness, you've got it. And the more you practice, the better, there's much more details about this, but the more you practice and carefully, those results will come. And there's more results beyond that. Results that any happiness in this material world is so insignificant because you're feeling millions of times more happiness. So these are results that are actually noticeable. And other places in the Bhagavatam, for example, they're given some symptoms, measurable symptoms, like, for example, how much are you engaged in serving Krishna? Are you always eager to hear about Krishna? Are you always eager to chant about Krishna? The more those increase is a sign that you're really experiencing the value, because the greatest saints, what is Rupa Goswami, who wrote the book, what does he say about chanting Hare Krishna? When I chant, I want thousands of tongues and millions of ears because it's so nectarian, so sweet. You may not quite feel like that, but the point is that that is what we're going for, you know? And so we want that taste, that sweetness, that experience. And it is the benefit that we keep striving for. In the meantime, the first thing happens, you're distressed, your suffering goes down. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to suffer at all, because Krishna has this unique way of using your karma to bring you forward. So what was previously your reaction, and that would cause you to sin again and again and more, now he turns that same thing around. Like someone may get sick and say, oh, I wish I didn't have a material body anymore because it's better I become spiritual. And so then he chants more Krishna, or he reads Bhagavad-gita a little more seriously. So Krishna uses sometimes suffering for those purposes, just to pull us forward. We're thinking, oh, why does this happen to me? But then actually afterwards, then you look back and say, no, he was helping me through something I was stubbornly holding on to. You know, it's like when I was a young devotee, I had a benefit because my mentor, my guide, worked right with me day by day. And so whenever I had a question, whenever I was feeling up or down, he would just directly talk to me, and you know, I would just feel, wow, he was helping me so much. But then suddenly he quit the job and I was there by myself. And so I used to pray to Krishna intensely every day. Krishna, why did you take him away? Don't you see how hard this is? Why did you take him away? And then I just was so distressed. I went out of the office and I went down on the street, on the main street, and it's downtown Detroit. So everything's covered with concrete, right? There's no grass, but somehow they had planted a tree every like 20 feet. They didn't grow very big, you know, they grow about 8-10 feet high, but somehow they put a tree. And so I was walking up and down, I was chanting this thing. Why Krishna, don't you see I need something? And then as I walked by, I saw there was one little nest in the tree. And there was a bird, a baby bird, and it was calling out and like, you know, chirp, 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 calling for his mother. Mother wasn't there. He kept calling and calling. And he was so eager to find his mother that he did something you think could be tragic. He fell out of the nest. He fell down on the sidewalk. And he was still chirping, and then all of a sudden, he started to fly, and he flew away.
You saw that?
Yeah.
That's the way it works, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. That's what exactly happened. And then I realized at that point, Krishna's saying, you have to become strong on your own so that you can fly by yourself. So whatever Krishna's teaching and whatever he's doing is to strengthen you so you can stand on your 2 feet and accept and deal with life as it's coming and keep on going towards Krishna.
Wow. Talk about reciprocation.
It was very intense, you know, I couldn't even work. I just said, I can't do anything. I'm so distressed. I had to go outside and just chant, you know.
Getting messages from without anything.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
You had another question?
It's not a question, it's a kind of observation from my side. Apart from the devotion and the surrendering to the God, maybe if you see the leadership and the management point of view, however, you know, the Krishna consciousness and participating in this kind of satsanga and other things helps the people to come out of from introvert to extrovert, how they can become from introvert to extrovert. If you see the IT organizations or software firms, they invest a lot of time and money to create a kind of an environment where their employees can freely express their point of views or share their opinions. If they spend good amount of time in ISKCON and Krishna consciousness, one good advantage they get is the chanting and dancing help them to come out of their comfort zone and start freely and become strong enough on their own.
And experience being transcendental.
Yeah,
Just no more on the body, just spirit.
very much. And again, if we are doing that in a public place and many people are watching us, if they are chanting and dancing, it certainly clearly gives a kind of a comfort, strength to them.
Yeah.
And what I can say is, they over a period of time, once they start experiencing, they will certainly start towards moving from introvert to extrovert, and they freely express their point of views, and they start the real, what is that? I can say how to be pure in their thoughts and their, way of behaving. That helps, maybe that's the point I observed from the management and leadership point of view, apart from this devotion and surrendering to that.
You should put him in charge of the street chanting. Organize everyone to go out and chant in the street.
Or in charge of this kind of leadership.
Even if you see, ma'am, recently we experienced that one in the Clearwater Beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's totally two different environments where the Krishna devotees are chanting and driving that chariot. On the other side, the beach, different environment altogether. So if you see the contrast behaviors and contrast personalities are there. So I observed that, people should undergo this kind of transformation. So maybe more introverts will certainly become extroverts after a period of time.
Sometimes the police notice this when there are big festivals. Sometimes we hear comments from the police.
Yeah.
That, I always volunteer for that Rathayatra day because there's no drinking, there's no killing, there's no fighting. Everyone is so happy.
Giving out free food.
Yeah. So, they're used to big festivals where there's a lot of craziness, rowdiness, and craziness. So it's those modes of nature. The holy name uplifts us to our natural state, which is the mode of goodness. That's the state of naturally, seeing and seeing things as they are, right?
How about the guys going back here? Any questions you have?
You were there at Clearwater, though. You were saying that for that festival, you were there also?
Yeah.
It's beautiful, huh?
That's my first attempt on the beach.
Amazing.
Great.
Now if it's open to us, we will be out there again chanting in public in the biggest gathering in Tampa in the whole year. You know what that one is? You've heard of the Gasparilla Parade?
Yeah.
So we're allowed to put Jagannath cart in there, and we have like 50, 60 devotees dancing and chanting. And that is witnessed by 500,000 people. And they love us. They see our cart goes by and they come up, hey, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, instead of all these pirates and drinking and, all their other crazy stuff. So if the COVID has gone down enough and they allow that parade in January, looking, because we try to get in that every year. And you can join. We'll keep a spot for you to come with us. And if you want to play some instrument. But you have to, it's like 4 miles walk. So you imagine the place is packed with people 4 miles.
Krishna gave him a body. He could walk. He could walk 24 miles. No problem. We'll put you in charge of the parade.
I was there last year probably. Before COVID, I was there in Gasparilla.
You saw us?
Yeah, I was with the cart, taking some photos for that.
You walked in the parade with us?
Yes, it was wonderful.
Well, there was a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of everything is like, except that everything is different. Except that everything is like a lot of drinking,
Partying and going crazy. I used to see people dressed in all kinds of bizarre ways. They all think, okay, this is a one day. It's good to drink as much as I can. become almost unconscious. They get so crazy.
But you don't feel like such a long walk, even though you walk for like 3-4 hours, but you don't feel that when you reach the car. It was very good. It's very nice.
It is. But it's a little tricky because there's so many people going there, you have to coordinate getting a place to park. I remember one girl who joined our party went chanting, and then she forgot where she parked her car. It took her 24 hours before she 24 hours. So many people and parking.
Was Krishna arranging to intensify her prayer? Oh Lord, where's my car? Any other questions before? Yes.
Prabhuji, I read that Lord Brahma's 12 hours is like 1,000 of 4 years.
Brahma's life?
Brahma's life.
Yeah.
Brahma's like 12 hours. Day is like 1,000 of yuga. So, like in this yuga, this particular pastime of Krishna is happening, right? So, does that repeat in every yuga in the same way or like?
Krishna's appearance and Lord Chaitanya's appearance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean, you're asking about whether Krishna appears in every yuga?
No, what we go through this yuga, like Lord Rama.
It comes as a cycle. And
So,
Krishna's leelas and Ram's leelas, they're like a traveling roadshow. So at every moment, Krishna's leela of, for example, stealing butter is happening in some universe somewhere. And then the next leela, so always it's traveling through all the different universes continuously. So yeah, I don't know if that's answering your question. Is that
whatever is like happened in the yuga, like this group started,
it will all repeat.
repeat in
It
every
repeats, it repeats. But always somewhere Ram is going out to the forest, and always somewhere Krishna's stealing butter, and always Krishna's dancing with the gopis. And it just keeps repeating. Because Krishna is in one place, Prabhupada says so beautifully, Krishna is ever inviting the fallen conditioned souls to associate with him in pastimes of love. So this is like his advertisement department, he's advertising his leelas, come and join and play with him.
He comes again and again to give the forgetful souls the chance to connect with him again. Like she's saying, it's like advertisements. Here's your opportunity. If you want something better, please come back to me.
Krishna's marketing department.
The great teachers, they recommend that we read again and again about Krishna's life. So we become familiar and then we actually develop an interest in the practice. So we have a book you can find, True Lives Can Help You, called Krishna book.
I do.
Yeah, you
Wonderful,
should read it regularly.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a question. Since the camp is so close to Alachua, is it possible to invite the devotees from here to that Thanksgiving kirtan that they have in Alachua that goes on for?
Yeah, I haven't heard they're gonna have it.
Yeah.
We go there as visitors, yes, but they have their young second generation, they arrange all the.
In different people's homes and maybe because of COVID.
But it's possible to get on that.
That must be wonderful.
So thank you all for allowing us to come and be part of your wonderful Sangha here. Oh yeah.
I think maybe towards the Prashadam because it's already 8:30 and they have to drive also. And then the morning also there is program and late afternoon and then evening. So we have a few opportunities more.
What time is the program in the morning?
Yeah, morning there's 6:30. I have put the time, but there'll be like japa and then arati. So 8:15 prashadam, breakfast prashad, then 9 o'clock bhāgavatam.
9 o'clock. Bhāgavatam.
9 to 10 is the
Online.
bhāgavatam online.
Online.
Yeah, a few devotees will be in person as well because we're trying to not have a lot of devotees at one place, so we chose like different geographical locations. So those who are closer to here can come here. Those who are closer to the previous home were there. So those who are closer to the south part will be there at that program tomorrow.
What part are we here?
This is more northwest, right? Northwest Tampa.
Also, there's some prashad.
Yeah, now we have.
We can talk a little bit. Good, okay. So we just want to thank everybody for allowing us to come, especially our host and hostess. Thank you very much. And just encourage all of you. Lord Chaitanya said the most important thing is, of course, chanting, but associating with other like-minded people, devotees. So you can see we come together and it increases our understanding, increases our faith, increases our enthusiasm, takes rid of some doubts that may come and gives us more inspiration for the future. And we know if we associate, we live in the world, you have to associate with materialistic people, but we need a little bit of like kind of insulation from that and some inspiration. So it's very, very important. So please come and read Prabhu's books, chant as much as you can and associate with each other, and you'll feel yourself advancing in spiritual life, guaranteed. So please don't lose the opportunity to have association with devotees. It's so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rukmini Mataji.
Yes.
We did tonight, right?
Let's come on, let's express our.
Yeah.
So nice that you joined us.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.